Well, hello, this is Peter. Right now it's April 17th, 2020, and I just want to talk about what's going on in the trucking industry and how it's affecting you. I'm sure that there's a lot of news out there that y'all just don't know who to believe or what to do, and you know, there's a couple topics that I want to talk about that are related to this specific special seasons, but technically it's not so much. I mean, yes, I know that there are some new things that are happening this COVID-19 like we've never seen before, coronavirus. But as far as trucking or rates slowing down, that ain't new. So the two questions that I have for y'all and that I really want to try to answer in this video is one relating to the rates. As you know, the rates are very, very low right now. So my question to you is, are rates really cheap? Okay. And then a second question has to do with the trucking industry as a whole. With my experience in 14 years, I mean, the question to you is trucking a long game or a short game when it comes to earning money? So let's debunk this, and this is what I have. As far as fuel, as far as rates goes, many of you should know that over-the-road trucking, especially the spot market over-the-road trucking, has a lot to do with the rates going up and down all the time. And a lot of people, there's different reasons obviously why, but I will say that fuel prices are always mirroring the rates that are out there. And it's not a big change when it's just changing back and forth a little bit, a gradual decline or you know, or upward or decline. But because of this coronavirus and the price war with Russia and Saudi Arabia, the fuel has dropped by a lot, which obviously it's going to be noticeable in rates. We're going to pull up a screen on the screen, a couple more, you know, just to show you how the rates are. But with fuel cards like what we have a TCS EFS fuel card, and it's giving us crazy discounts. We're talking about after discounts. I just came from a load from Florida to Dallas, and I fueled $1.75 or $1.78 in Florida, close to Orlando. That's after discount. And then on the way back in Mississippi, I mean, there's so many places that are $1.50, $1.55 after discounts. I mean, it's just amazing. I've seen discounts even in the big, most expensive states like Pennsylvania and California, $2.25. I've seen discounts up to $1.30, you know, from the amount, the cash price. So definitely check out those fuel cards, and when you are with PDP, you get those discounts automatically at purchase price within simply minutes after you purchase the fuel. All right, so check these out. We have, as you can see in here, mid-April 2020, and look at these discounts. You have $97, $132. I mean, there's some that don't give us discounts. Loves, yes, but TA, Petro, Road Ranger, Saab Brothers, they're giving tremendous discounts. $67. Yeah, $131, $101, $113, $112, and so on. This is again all just happening right now. I mean, if you scroll down more towards 17th, as you can see, April 7th, yeah, you got $100, All of these are huge, tremendous. And then I wanted to show you on the map, this is through our Apex, they give us these discounts. And look, the cheapest one is in Portland, Oregon, which $1.25. Yes, then you got $1.40 with 62 cents discount. In California, look at this, 112 cents discount at $2.17. You got 88 cents discounts, 135 cents discount. And the price that's at Roadies in California at $2.34. I mean, if you just go through it, 43 cents discount, 35 cents discount, 77 cents, I mean 49 cents. And look at these prices, $1.87, you know, $1.70. Yeah, this is crazy. $1.63, $1.51, 54. Yeah, so this is crazy. Just wow, just wow. And then if we look at even Pennsylvania, because as everybody knows, Maryland is supposed to be expensive, $1.75 with 96 cents discount. Pennsylvania, which is supposed to be expensive, you know, and that's $2.48, $2.16 in PA, $2.17. I mean, look at these discounts though. You know, so right now, obviously, you gotta use a fuel card. You know, and it gives you PA and California are the most expensive states usually. Yeah, look at this, 109 cents. This is something similar that happened in 2014, December 2014. The prices dropped, and we've seen a dollar discount. Yeah, back then, and beginning of 2015. So this is a pattern that keeps repeating. Yes, and I'm sure before that too. But look at these. Look at this. This is happening now. Yeah, this is crazy. This is just wow. And that's not even the look. It says $1.65, and that's not the lowest price in the 50-mile radius. So, what does that have to do with rates? Okay, you might think. Well, you got to understand, in trucking, there's two ways, two different markets. One is the spot market, and one is the contract market. Contract, that's dedicated. We don't typically do that at PDP, but that's why you see fuel surcharges. Fuel surcharge was put in place to balance that price go up and down. In spot market, we don't have that. So in spot market, because you book loads every day and they're always different on the prices, the way how the industry balances that fuel prices going up and down is by constantly changing rates per every load. So I'm going to pull up a couple PowerPoints here, but basically this is pretty cool. I wanted to show you something, yeah, of comparing the fuel prices, what we had last year at $3.50 per gallon versus today on average of $1.75 per gallon, to kind of show you how the market on the rate per mile you know, mirrors that drop too. So in this example, in the first example, I'm gonna say that like last year, the fuel was at $3.50 per gallon. And I'm gonna give you a whole bunch of numbers right now, so please try to stay with me. And you can change your own numbers in the way how you wanna do it with your numbers, but hear me out. So let's assume, and it was pretty good bet that last year, $2 a mile was a pretty good paying load. And for this example, we're just gonna make it very simple to calculate. So let's say a load was 500 miles and you negotiated a load, you know, paying $1,000. Obviously in trucking, it's much more complicated than that, but you know, just for simplicity things, I'm just doing this per load, not per week. You know, so please don't misunderstand me. There's you know, other things to consider, but just for this example, 500 miles, gross paying at $1,000, that's $2 a mile. Assuming that the fuel economy in your truck is at 6 miles to the gallon, which of course everybody has a different fuel economy, depends on how you drive, what truck you have, you know, and I've seen some new ones go up to 7 and 8 miles to the gallon, but then there's some classic trucks that get as low as 5. So I thought a 6 mile to the gallon would be a good number, but you can change this number depending on your truck. So based on this, if you take the 500 miles divided by 6 miles to the gallon, that gives you 83.33 gallons that you need to use. If you take that and multiply it by $3.50 a gallon, that gives you $291.67 of fuel expense. Okay? So at PDP, you also get 85% of the gross load. So the $1,000 multiplied by 85% equals $850 paid to you. The remaining is paid for the admin and factoring fee. So if you take the $850 and you subtract the fuel expense, $291.67, that gives you a net profit of $558.33. Okay? So to compare this, at $1.75, we're going to try to calculate everything in backwards, so we can still get the same net profit of $558.33. So if you take the 500 miles and you divide it by 6 miles to the gallon and multiply by $1.75, which is what the average is today on fuel, and again, you can get much lower than that, but still. Yeah, so that equals to $145.83, which if you think about it, that's pretty much half of last year's fuel expense, which, you know, $3.50 divided by 2 is $1.75. It's a half, so obviously that makes sense. So if you take the net profit of $558.33 and you add in the fuel expense of $145.83, that equals to $704.17. And then you take that and you have to account for the factoring fee, admin fee. So you divide by 85% and then times 100%. That gives you a gross load pay of $828.43. This is comparing to the $1,000 that you negotiated. So what does that mean? If you take 828.43 and divide it by 500 miles, that equals to $1.66 per mile. So you're seeing that what you had to book for before $1,000, today, if you do it only at $828, you'll basically get the same net profit. In conclusion, the comparison, what does that mean? That last year's $2 a mile brings the same net profit as today's $1.66 a mile. So as you can see, the rate per mile, what it was last year, just a couple months ago, you know, at $2 a mile. What today, because of the fuel prices change, it's equal to as $1.66 a mile. Obviously, you have to account for the different scenarios of your truck, where you run, you know, where you fuel, and you know, your miles per gallon on your truck, all of that considering. But in this example, you get my point, that in spot market, the way you balance the fuel prices, the rate per mile is the way you do it, back and forth. Every time you book a load, it changes all the time. And that's why one week you have a load from point A to point B for only $1,000, and the next week the fuel prices changed and now it's $1,100 or $900. Okay, so consider all of that. Yeah, so point number 2, the question that I asked was, is trucking a long game or a short game when it comes to making money? And you got to understand that in over-the-road trucking industry, spot market freight, okay, there's 2 major cycles, okay, and it's about learning how to ride the waves. The 2 cycles I'm talking about, so every year, as you know, during winter it starts off very slow. January and February are mostly really bad. Then it starts to pick up. March, April, May, each year is different. But then during summer it goes up, and most of the time, you know, when it comes to December, November, the 4th quarter is the last push before the prices are about to drop again. It's been like that every single year. You know, different year, every year is different, but approximately the same. And then there's a second cycle that happens every 4 years. As I mentioned, I've been in business for 14 years, and this is my 4th cycle, but I'm told this has been happening even before I was born. So what I'm talking about is this: a year before the election, and I'm talking about 2007, 2011, 2015, 2019, the rates have dropped significantly for those years. It's been really bad when it comes to rates. Of course, every year has its own pros and cons and stuff like that, but we just came out of a very harsh year for the trucking industry in 2019. Then there's the year of election, which that's 2008, 2012, 2016, 2020, and I promise you this is gonna keep going to 2024, 2028, and so forth. But these years, it's usually starting to correct itself. The market's starting to correct itself. It's starting to pick up slowly but surely. It's not great year or anything like that when it comes to rate, okay? But it's on the way there. And relatively speaking, if it wasn't for COVID-19, this year would have been just another one of those years. Now, coronavirus has put a, you know, made it all very special on its own this year, but you get my point. And then there's 2 years after the election. Okay, and to be honest, regardless of who gets elected, it doesn't matter who gets elected. It's, you know, but if you look at it historically, 2009 and 2010, 2013, 2014, 2017 and 2018, and I promise you this is going to happen again 2021 through 22, and it's like this all the time. But this is when the rates are up. This is when the market is up. Trucking is at its best. Okay, so these are so important to understand, because in trucking industry, I've seen owner-operators that make the next 2 huge mistakes, and at the end they have nothing to show for it after many years in the industry. The 2 mistakes are, okay, first one, when it gets hard, they quit. They sell the truck for cheap, because at that time the prices are dropping in trucking rates, in the truck prices. Or they just wait until the truck is repossessed. They ruin their credit. They don't make payments. And it's very important that during this hard time, you basically just trying to survive. It is possible to still make money. There's places you can cut. There's things you can do to save. But it's about surviving, basically. The second mistake that I see is a lot of owner-operators, they once it starts to pick up, they start to buy the trucks again. They start to get into it. They hear their best friend is making all this money now, and they jump in it. And at that time, you're buying trucks at a high price because the markets went up. This COVID-19 made this example so black and white. This is exactly what happened in beginning of this year, January and February. It was bad. Okay, we were all, trucking industry was just coming out of a whole year worth of bad rates, and everybody's just trying to make it. A whole bunch of trucking companies shut down, go bankrupt, and January and February are just bad, right? I mean, because every year, the beginning of the year is really, really bad. So then March happens, this COVID-19, everything just blows out of proportion, and the rates started to trend upward significantly. I've seen even myself booking loads, just wow, we haven't seen those rates for a long time. $3 a mile, I mean $3.50 a mile, and you would just call up and say whatever you want and they'll give it to you. Okay, because there just wasn't enough loads. Everybody was scared, chaos, and yeah, so all of those companies that went out of business, they hear, oh, these rates going up. Okay, I gotta get into trucking. It's starting. I gotta get back in. So they start to buy trucks or start to get into the trucking somehow to start with the loads. And then April happens. All the non-essential companies shut down, and volume is dropping significantly. I mean, we're talking about customers, after booking the load, they cancel because the shipper or consignee is closed, or whatever the case. Just not enough loads. Out of, you know, Seattle, when my dad was there, 15 loads in a whole day on Monday. I mean, that's crazy. That's barely enough to go around. I mean, it's just very, very little volume. So by this time, all of these guys heard in what was happening in March. They jump on this, but there's not enough loads now. And then more trucks jump into it because they heard that March was great, but it's too late. So they get discouraged. Oh, my friend, he's such a liar. He don't know what he's talking about in trucking. But the truth is, they were just too late. Okay? So what do they do again? They quit again. Oh my gosh, this is just nonsense. We're just gonna sit home. Now, I do have to mention, with the whole COVID-19, if you're sick, if you feel sick, if you have somebody sick, I mean, all of that, I am not talking against that, okay? If it was me, I mean, health is my priority too, first and foremost. Obviously, your family is much more important than making, you know, money or all of that. So please don't misunderstand me, okay? I want y'all to follow those guidelines, and yeah, no problem there. The perspective, the thing that I'm trying to show you guys is this COVID-19 showed the contrast of how the trucking is every 4 years cycle, and then every year cycle. It's happening all the time. I see it all the time. I have some relatives who's been in business as long as I have, some even longer, but today they still don't have a truck paid, or you know, they still trying to survive paycheck to paycheck. because they are constantly going in and out of business all the time. Trucking is not a short game, okay? You're in it for a long haul, okay? Yes, I've been in business for 14 years. We have almost 70 trucks. How do you think all that happens? Just all of the boom? Yeah. No, it's much more simple, actually, yes, but a lot of it has to do with persistence, perseverance. In over-the-road trucking business, spot market, of course, I mean, you get rich from persevering during the hard times, okay? And be the first to ride the wave when it starts to go up. Now, I know right now every one of you is scared to some degree, including myself, and we don't know what's going to happen, how this is all going to be revealed. I've heard that Trump is wanting to open up the company in stages. We don't know. We don't know how exactly it's going to be, but I do know that once the country starts to open up, once everything starts to roll and businesses are opening up, I promise you the rates are gonna go back up again. It's gonna happen. That's just the way it is. Okay, that's how the market in trucking works. And I know that this year, the number of trucks in 2020, the number of trucks driving are much lower than what it was last year in 2019. I know this, you know this, and I promise you it's gonna pick up. The elections are gonna pass. Whoever wins after that, there's gonna be 2 good years again, 2021, 2022, and then guess what? I promise you, I can bet $100 right now, it's gonna go back down again. Whatever. It could be something as bad or something not as bad as COVID-19. Regardless of what it is, it will go down. Because just like it went down in 2019, trucking industry, we were victim of our own success. 2017, 2018 were so good on the rates. You could drive and just ask whatever you want, and they would give it to you. Everybody made money in trucking. It's gonna happen again. This is how it works. You have to learn how to ride the wave. Trucking industry is about cycles. I've heard a lot of people tell me it's same like stock market, which that actually does make sense. It's the same way. You never put in, in a short and expect to make millions of dollars just because. No, I mean, it works in time. Trucking does the same. Learn these cycles. Learn how it works. The people that, the owner-operators, the trucking companies that survive this will be the first on the next wave. And it's coming. I know it's coming. I've spoken to one owner-operator in particular, and he asked me a very, very interesting question. He said, Peter, does it benefit me to drive with these low rates? I mean, you've seen $1 a mile and just cheap loads. I mean, first of all, you got to understand that the rate per mile prices mirror fuel prices, okay? So there's been, I'm talking about like $2 per gallon drop in fuel. So obviously the rate per mile has to drop too. It's just the way trucking is. Okay. And just like I said, $1.66 is the new norm of $2 a mile in the scenario that I've mentioned. But that's a good question. And I told him yes. Yes, he does. But not even when it comes to the prices of fuel and all of that. But it benefits you for one reason only, just by itself, that you are not getting into debt. Yeah, so there's 2 types of owner-operators when it gets hard like this. Ones are, they get discouraged, depressed, they sit home, they get into debt and just hope, you know, they're gonna start getting $2 a mile, which that never happens, not until the time such as next, you know, year, and they get out of business, or they fall into debt, a lot of debt. And then by the time it does pick up, they are struggling to get out of that debt. They mess up their credit, and when they do get out, because it's good years now, by the time they do get out, they haven't learned from their past experience, and they just keep repeating the cycle again and again, and it's just sad. It's just sad. I was one of those people. Okay, it was sad. There's a second type of owner operators, and they are people that whenever it gets tough, whenever it gets hard, they double down. They try work even harder. Yes, you're not gonna make money all the time, but by not going into debt, it puts you on the front lines of when the rates do come back up. You don't have the debt. Okay, you're already making money. You don't pay the fees, the interest, and all of these other late fees on everything, and you still have a good credit. So it's very, very important, you know, to think positive, okay, to stay on top of things. As a businessman that you are, okay, you can't afford to put in negative thoughts into your head. Okay, the whole depression, all of that, turn off the news. Okay, if you have a negative friend, lose their number. Okay, it's just, you can't afford to have that negativity. If you survive this, which you will, I know you will, because it will be over soon. When the company when the country starts to open up again, it will get better. Are you gonna be on that front line? Are you gonna be on that first wave? So in conclusion, stay in trucking. Don't give up. Drive through this storm, ride out the storm. Don't go into debt. You will be ready for the next wave, which is coming very, very soon. And as it starts, I know that the rates are going to be going up. But this is true for any season. As I mentioned, these cycles, they happen all the time. This video is going to be true not just today in 2020, but all the time. Because trucking, stock market, and so many other businesses, they go through these patterns. Learn how to ride these waves. And remember, the fuel prices mirror the rate per mile for the loads in the spot market over the road trucking. I'm talking about vans, reefers, step decks, flatbeds. I mean, all the other ones have their own type of things like oil fields and construction, and I came from construction trucking, so they have their own little things, but you got to understand all of these. Okay, so don't give up, stay positive, be safe out there, turn off the news, you know, don't talk to negative people. It's gonna get better. Okay, I gotta be going. Gotta get out there. Drive safe.